Now remember, when we took this apart, these gears needed to be up in that corner right there. First time I did this, of course, I did it wrong, and I tried to put them in on the wrong side. And then I got it almost all in and past these cables and stuff, and then I realized, hey, this needs to be rotated, and that is really hard to do. Now, one thing that you can see is wrong here. I've got my ribbon under this platter. I need to take this and somehow scoop that as I put this in. All right, there we go. Okay, now it's not fitting in quite right, so that means I have to finesse it a little. That's what I call it in electronics when I've opened something up and I've really got to work on it to get it to do what I want it to do. That's finesse that it takes. Okay, looks like this is matching up properly, so I just need to make sure that I can put a screw in and it matches. Make sure you use the proper screw holes. There's holes all over this thing. Don't put them there, put them there where the little triangles are. Okay. Okay. Ah, there it popped into place. You see how far that was off? I didn't even know it. These things are tricky. Alright, now it's in where it needs to be. I can just screw that in. Okay, let's do another one. I think this looks like it went pretty smoothly. None of this is loose. This will need to be put back in here, and I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. Oh, see, now this is where that magnet comes in handy. There, see how easy that was? If I didn't have this magnet, I would have had to take this whole thing back apart, flip it over or something, and find this screw. I might even drop it again, who knows? But I've got the magnet thing. So important, in my opinion, to working on electronics. I've had a million things in pieces. I think I've used that on every single one at some point. And, you know, if you're tight on cash, it's not like it has to be this thing. It could be any magnet that would work probably. But I think this was only like $4 or $5. Totally worth it. I've used it so much, almost more than any other tool, I think. Okay, that last one goes there. Okay. And then I've got one more that goes there, deep inside of this thing. It might, at this point, be easier to just flip it around and put it in this way. Okay, now, before I set this panel down, I'm going to make sure that all of my little switches and knobs are in the right place. There are some things that can fall out, like earlier I had a problem where this little guy right here, this is the forward reverse switch, and it fell out on me. So you got to make sure that all that stuff's in place so that way, A, this thing will go into place correctly because it's a tight fit already, and B, just so that you don't get it all the way back together and then flip it over and realize, okay, I have to take this thing all the way back apart. Now, one thing you need to pay attention to, important, is that this little tab over here needs to be lifted up, and you're gonna have to put this guy under it. Goes under. Because I assume that this connection, I don't know if you can see it, has a bunch of solder around it. I think that's so that it can make contact with this. I think this is a ground plate of some sort. It's covering some other stuff, maybe the pitch slider, but I know that's on maybe that side. Yeah, that's the pitch slider. So this plate's covering that, and I need to make sure that that lands on that properly. This ribbon is ready to be reconnected now. Okay, there are posts here and here that also need to be clear of this. When I put it back together the first time, it was hitting and I couldn't figure out why it wouldn't go back together. Well, lo and behold, there's this thing here keeping it from going together properly. Okay, let's go ahead and connect this. This is really delicate procedure. To put these back in, easiest way I've found is the opposite of the way you pick them out. So I pull it out like this. I point it downward. I grab up here, but as close to those little contacts as I can. And then I just kind of side to side wiggle it and push it. You'll eventually feel it give. My big old fat finger's stuck under there. Okay. Then you want to grab, again, as low as you can, but a little bit higher, and just give it one last push in there, and you'll feel it hit the end. Don't push real hard. These are delicate. I don't know that you can hurt anything, but you definitely want to make sure you want to push hard enough to get it all the way in and get a good contact on all of these, and so that it's not loose. You want to do this and jiggle it just a little bit to make sure it's not loose. As long as you can do that, it'll stay put, and that is what carries all the data to the jog wheel, or some of it anyway, probably half of it, because there's another ribbon that goes back in that side. Okay, now I'm going to pause it and redo all these screws. Remember, they're all over the place. This one has this little guy on it, and it's a little thing that comes down and keeps these in place. So just remember where you got that from. Okay, all my screws are back in. My ribbon's connected here. That means that all we need to do is connect that ribbon and then close her back up. All right, now you've got to situate them in such a way that the ribbon will actually reach where it needs to go. See how that won't work? That's because the ribbon's going under that board, and I don't want to undo that because there's some reason that the engineers wanted it under there, so I'm going to leave it. Instead, what I'm going to do, I'm going to move this over slightly, and you can see I had some knobs fall off. I should have taken these off before I started, but no harm, no foul. Okay, now I'm going to put that right up on there, just like that. See how easy that is? And I'm going to take this ribbon. Remember, print side goes facing down in this case. And I want to line it up like this and use that same method I used before, where I grab low and then I just try to finesse it in. You might have to try a few times, but don't give up and don't push hard. It'll go in. If you just kind of wiggle it into there, you'll be able to feel it give, and then it'll go and it'll hit the bottom, and then you'll have a perfect connection there. You want to double check it, pull a little, wiggle. Nope, that's secure. Okay, now I don't know if I can do this one-handed. We'll try. One last thing before I finish this up. This screw in the back is shorter than the rest, so make sure that you keep an eye on it when you've got it in your tray, and make sure that you don't put the wrong screw in there, because it might hit bottom and you might not be able to get it all the way in. Okay, so now that we've got it all done, I'm going to take it over to the booth and plug it in, and we can go test it, and cross your fingers, hopefully it'll work. Let's see how it looks. Never tighten any of the screws too tightly. Don't over torque them, because you can crack. These are all made out of plastic. 90% of the time when you're tightening a screw that's in electronics, you are tightening into plastic, and what will happen is that you over tighten that and it strips that out, and then you've trashed one of the little fasteners, and sometimes they're important ones, so you don't want to do that.